Okay, so today is February 1st, 2014, and this is part two of kind of a video interview with wonderful Floyd Zucker, and we're just going to pick it up from like high school graduation time frame onward for a little while. So just go ahead and talk about that, high school graduation, and where it was and when it was, and then what happened shortly thereafter.
Well, I went to a small country high school, had about 120 students, and we had in our class about 30, and I think 28 graduated. We actually, over a 4-year period, had 36, 37, and they all come back for our reunions. But
that was in Idaho, Rexburg area.
Yeah, it was in Yukon, Idaho, outside of Rigby and Idaho Falls and the Ryrie. It was kind of a little community all in between. An old school, a very small schoolhouse, and my senior year, let's see, my senior year, I participated in what was then called forensic, public speaking, debate, memorized oratory and that kind of thing, and I got to be in two plays that senior year. And I could do the plays because I could do them during the day. We had periods that I'd let the kids out to go in and practice, but I didn't participate in athletics because you had to stay after school, and I had chores and work to do every night, so I didn't do that.
Right.
But during my senior year, I got a job in the fall working a shift at the sugar factory. My brother Wayne was one of the foremen, and I didn't work with him, but he was able to help me get lined up, and I worked a night shift from let's see, what was it? I got off at 7 in the morning. I guess 11 at night till 7 in the morning, and then I went to school.
Wow.
And it was I worked on they refined sugar beets.
So when did you sleep? Like 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. or something?
Well, I slept in class. Not real. But I came home and I helped with the chores and milked the cows, and then I usually got to sleep for about 4 or 5 hours, and I was all right. I got back home in time to help with the last of the milking in the morning, and then went to school, and I had a pretty good year. The sugar factory only ran from September to December typically. Sometimes went into January, but usually it was finished before Christmas. So that job ended then.
Okay. So you were 19, maybe, something like that.
I was, let's see, 17.
17?
Yeah,
Okay.
I turned 17 in November of that year.
All right.
And then I continued working with Dad on the farm, and then I got a job in order to buy my class ring and pay for my cap and gown. I took a week off of school. They let me do that. And I worked for a man that went around and did what was called fanning grain. He worked all the farmers in the area and all the way up into Wyoming with a big machine that was on a truck that I'd pour bags of wheat in one end, and it would go through that machine and it would treat it to keep it from being affected by insects. Cleaned out all of the bad chaff and all of the what was it? Oh, mustard seed, tiny little mustard seed would get in it, and it blew it through a system that knocked out a lot of the bad stuff. And then on the other end, another guy bagged it back up, and we sold it. We didn't sell it. He just charged a fee to each farm. The farmer had his own seed, and we'd pull in and load it into the machine. And I did that for a week, and I made enough money in a week. I think I made $18, and it paid for my class ring. And
wow.
That was back in 1951. And then we graduated.
So when you wanted something, you just figured out how to work for it and earn the money for it back then.
Yeah. They didn't have a lot of money yet, but it was pretty good. 51 was pretty good because they were getting a good milk check, and they finally had a pickup, and we were able to get around. I bought a car with the money that I made at the sugar factory. It was an old, it was a little white 1941 Chevrolet that had been stored during World War II in a warehouse. And it was a coupe. It was just 2 seats in the front, no back seat. And kind of a bench seat in front, really.
Yeah.
But it had places you could put luggage and such behind the seat. And a little white 1941 Chevy. And it had only about 30,000 miles on it because it had been sitting in the warehouse all that time.
So you were like 18 maybe at this point? Or?
Yeah, I was still 17.
Still 17, okay.
Turned 18 till in the fall. But when we got through, I helped Dad on the farm, and then part-time, he let me go up and work on a dry farm. I could go up during the day, and I drove a wheat truck. But it was just when they got to the wheat harvesting, and we were able to follow big combines around that pumped the wheat into the truck, and when we got it, we just took it to a grain elevator and unloaded it. Did that for about a month. And then in the fall, about the last part of August, my good friend Arthur Harmon and I, who have really been good buddies all our lives, they lived through the field and we did everything together. He and I got a job down at the sugar factory again. This time we were building feed corrals because they had a lot of the product they put out that was really good feed for cattle.
So did this pay more than the previous?
Well, I got 55 cents an hour when I was working night shift at the thing, but I think I got about $18 a week when I was working for that. But I only worked 2 weeks because I got a call from my sister Doris down in California and said, come down and you can go to college. So they put me on a Greyhound bus. I went to California.
So you had graduated?
I graduated in high school in May of 1951, and we went to, I went to California, and I started college at Citrus College.
So how did your dad feel about that move?
Oh, well, I think they were happy and supportive. My brother Wayne was farming in the community a little bit at the time, and he'd helped Dad. He bought it. He got, because he was a veteran of World War II, he got priority to buy farm equipment. So he bought a tractor that he and Dad used together a lot. In fact, my junior year in high school, Dad got caught in the power lift on the tractor and crushed his leg and ankle, and he couldn't work. So I ran the farm that summer between junior and senior year, and that summer I had a good summer though, because I had organized a little league baseball team out in the country, and we used the pickup. Dad had an old pickup that he bought from a well driller, and I could load 10 boys in the back of that and take them to town, and we played baseball. And that was fun.
What was the name of the team?
Well, it was Garnes and Avery were our sponsors. They paid for T-shirts.
Oh, okay.
And my mother sprayed the name on T-shirts. That we bought some little T-shirts for them to wear. But we went to town and we won the city championship.
Oh.
Got little trophies, pretty neat stuff. that was during my junior summer in high school.
Were you a pitcher or just a good hitter or just?
Oh, we just had a good variety. We didn't have enough boys in Milo, so I went to Yukon where I was going to high school and picked up 4 boys down there. Very good athletes.
You scouted them out, yeah.
And I had known them because I'd worked a little bit with playground activities at the school. These were kids in elementary, junior high. So,
Okay.
anyway, it was fun.
All right.
I got to California and went to school.
Where was this again, California?
It was in Azusa, Glendora. My sister Doris and her husband lived in Glendora. He worked at a pharmacy called Nelson's Drugstore in Glendora.
Is that by LA or is it north?
It's west, almost out to Pomona.
Okay.
It's about 30 miles out of LA.
Okay.
But the little college was called Citrus College, and at that time it was actually part of the high school. After World War II and all these military men were coming back and they were needing more advanced training, so they built a big new building beside the high school, and that was the junior college. But they had some faculty from the high school come over and teach, and a class or two I went over to the high school and took. And so I enjoyed it. It was a great experience. The school was small. There were a total of about 450 or 500 students
Okay.
in the little, it was a community of junior college, Citrus Junior College, what it was called.
Now, had you always wanted to go to college, or was this like out of the blue?
I kind of wanted to, and I
Yeah.
had a high school teacher who really encouraged me to go,
Mm-hmm.
Beulah Bueller, and so I kind of wanted to go, but I never had the money to go up in Rexburg. I was thinking of going to Ricks at that time, but it was very cheap to go in California into the public community colleges, because it cost me $25 a semester
Yeah.
to go to the community college,
Right.
and I just had to pay books and fees and a few things like that. So
And you just lived with yours.
lived with my sister and her husband and two little kids. Then they had a third one while I was living with them, but I got a job as soon as I got in town. I went to work for a lady who had a big walnut orchard, and I shook all of her walnuts down. I laid big canvases under the trees and shook the walnuts off the trees.
That's how you do it, huh? That's okay.
Yeah, and then we had to husk them. We'd lay them out on a table, let them dry, because they had a pretty good husk, and after they did that, then we just roll them and bang them together, and the husk would fall off. And she sold quite a few just at a little stand in front of her house.
Huh.
And then I got a job that fall. After the walnut season was over, I started working in a restaurant. And I washed dishes, and I prepared the salads. It was called Ron's Steakhouse. And it was about 7 miles from where we lived, 8. And I could catch a bus and go over and catch the bus and come home. And I worked there from about 5 in the afternoon until 11 at night.
Did you get a free dinner there? Or?
Yes, quite often. In fact, once in a while he would sit us down, and when we were through, and he'd give us a big steak dinner.
Mm-hmm.
But it was a good experience. I enjoyed that. And then
What did you enjoy about it?
I learned so much new. And I enjoyed the people we worked with.
Yeah.
It was fun. Yeah, and I was having a good time at Citrus, and I was in a play. I got to participate in a play there, and
So you enjoyed drama?
I did. I enjoyed being in plays, particularly plays. Then my second semester, I was on the golf team.
The golf team, okay.
Yeah, I was. They were really hard up. The guy that was the coach for the golf team was my psychology teacher,
Okay.
and so he was really encouraging some of us to go out. So I went out and practiced. And well, what we did was after classes got out about 1:30 or 2 in the afternoon, we'd go out. There was a golf course real close to school, and we did pretty good. And then finally, right at the end of the year, they had a little junior college tournament. There were 7 on our team. It was all I was able to get pulled together, and they had 2 days that we played rounds on one golf course in Southern California. And he took us over, and they let all of us play, and then the 5 that had the lowest scores ended up getting a school letter, and our little junior college team won the state championship.
The state champion.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was, well, it may have not been the state, but it was all of Southern California. Probably that's what it was.
Yeah.
There were 15 community colleges involved.
That's quite a few.
It was fun, and I came in 5th
Okay.
with an average of 94.
Okay.
And I never played golf. I played golf just a few times after that.
Right.
My second year, I was student body president of the school, and I continued to be in speech and drama a little bit.
So you campaigned for student body president a
Yeah,
little bit.
and then I got to serve in a, they had what they call the Model UN, colleges and universities from all over California.
Mhm.
And our little school was selected to go as a representative of Ukraine, USSR. Now this was 1951, 52. And we were put into a group with Russia and several other satellite countries around Russia that were communist.
Right.
And so they held big UN meetings at the University of Southern California. And our little school got to go in, and there were 5 of us from our school were the delegates for the Ukraine, and we got to participate with Russia in writing some new ordinances that we wanted passed. And
Right.
it was quite fun.
Oh.
But I enjoyed that year, and I worked full-time not full-time, but I worked, I got a job that fall, and I worked as a, what do you call it, service station attendant.
Okay.
And I worked there from, I got 5 hours in, so I got off at 11, closed the station at 11.
So that's back when they had full service. You know, someone pulled up and
Yeah, you bet. And we had a real wealthy guy in the community owned Rainbird company that makes the Rainbird sprinkler systems. LaFetre was his name, and he drove in a great big black Cadillac. And if you would hurry and get out and clean his windows, check his oil, do everything for you, you always got a $50 tip.
it's just significant.
Yeah, it was big. Yeah, because I was, at that time, I was up to about 70 cents an hour in California. My summer between my freshman and sophomore year, my brother Don had me come over and work at Douglas Aircraft. And I stayed and lived with Don and Muriel, and I got, the job that I got was one that was called the Gooper.
The Gooper.
Yeah, and they were building the DC-6s then, and I had a night shift, and I'd go in at 4 and get off at midnight, and during the day I went to Santa Monica Community College or City College and took a math class.
So what did a Gooper do?
Well, when they riveted all the metal together on the planes, and then they had a new synthetic product that we get now, just like we get over there in those caulking tubes.
Oh, right.
It was the first type of synthetic caulking.
Oh, okay.
And they had, it came in just a gray that you put on the inside of the plane, that you had to go down all the seams, the full length of the plane, and caulk it to seal up, make sure no air escaped. And then on the outside, they had a kind of an aluminum colored caulking. They hit the seams again on the outside.
Huh.
They overlapped like that, the big sheet, and then they were riveted together with a hot type riveter that one-sided of it always amazed me because they could put it through and bang and it would seal them together.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
So did the goop have a strong smell or odor? Or?
No, not real bad.
Not too bad. Okay.
No,
So
it
you
was-
just took like a caulking gun or something
Yep,
and just, you
it was
know.
a metal tube and a little, came frozen. And you had to thaw it out first, and it was in a tube that was just about like these.
Yeah, frozen. Huh.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
And then, anyway, I worked there all that summer, and my brother Don helped me trade in my old Chevy, and I got a new, not a new, it was a used 1949 Plymouth
Mhm.
two-door sedan, so that I have a car to drive around when I was going to meetings as student body president. And I had to go to meetings from time to time.
Now, how did driver licenses work back then? Did you have one or?
Yeah, you had to have one. When I was a kid, though, we could drive up until on the farm and in the community without a license, but you had to get a license when you were 14 to get on any major roads
Right.
if you were going out of your little area. But most kids learned to drive about 9 or 10 because they were driving. Some of them had tractors, we didn't, but we had a big heavy old one. But it wasn't something you would drive. When Wayne got his tractor, but that was after I was out of high school anyway. We drove neighbors' tractors and that type of thing.
Sure.
At the time, but
And driver's licenses back then didn't have any picture on them, of course.
no. In fact, I don't think we had to take a test. All you had to do was pay the fee. It was maybe $1, $1.50. And I don't even know who issued it. Whether fishing licenses you bought at a drugstore.
Right. But it wasn't a state issued thing per se.
Yeah, I think it was government issued, but I don't know where you got them because it's been a long time.
So no test or anything. You didn't have to drive with anybody, or
Nope,
You
didn't
just-
have to have a driver. Yeah, didn't have to have training. All you had to do was drive the car with somebody in it to make sure you knew what you were doing,
oh, okay.
and that was it.
So somebody did go with you for a little
Yeah,
test drive.
just for a little test drive.
Sure.
That was all.
All right.
And I can't even remember who. We didn't have anything at school that had anything to do with it because we didn't have driver's ed.
Right.
So.
Was there car insurance back then, or not really?
Yeah, I think there must have been. I don't remember. I remember getting it when Don bought the little, with me, the white car. He co-signed on it for me. And the guy that sold us the insurance was State Farm or Farmers Insurance Group or something. His name was Phil Tusigna.
Oh,
He was
okay.
a Japanese fellow.
Huh.
And it was very inexpensive. I didn't have, it was like
Right.
$50 every 6 months or something.
Uh-huh.
But I had that, and when I graduated from Citrus, I worked that summer in California in a casket factory as a welder.
A lot of different jobs.
Yeah, I did. And then I also worked part-time I started out in a tire factory down in Linwood for 12 hours a day. I just cut crude rubber into strips and threw it into a machine and bags of black carbon, and it would grind it all together, and then it would roll it out into sheets, and it went to Firestone for making tires. It was interesting, filthy, dirty thing. They had showers that you could clean up before you left. And then I worked there for about a month and a half, and I was driving 40 miles down there and back. So I got a chance to work in a factory that made caskets, but they had a contract to build minesweepers. Little torpedo.
So a relationship between caskets and minesweepers?
Yeah, well, they did the same kind of welding.
Okay.
Metal caskets had seams on them that they welded with what was called a heliarc welder.
Uh-huh.
So I went there and they taught me how to do heliarc welding, and I worked on the, they looked like big bombs with fins on the back and a big ring on the top of them up near the front. And they would string a group of those together and pull them. They used them as minesweepers in the bays in the Korean War to go through and break the mines loose and make them pop up to the surface, and then they could shoot and explode them.
Oh, not land minesweeper. These are, you drug them through the water.
Yeah, these were naval
Oh, okay.
minesweepers, and they were probably, I'd say 12 feet long, and probably about a foot, 2 feet. They were about 2 feet in diameter.
Yeah.
And so the welding was very interesting because you didn't use all you did was you just went right down the seams of the stainless steel or whatever the metal was, and with the heat, it fused the two together. And the inside had the same bead as the outside. It looked identical because it just fused the two of them solid together. But I worked there for about 3 months, and then I went off I'd graduated from Citrus, got a little scholarship from BYU.
So that was a 2-year program? Or?
2-year program. I graduated there, and I'd taken a pretty heavy load. I usually carried 20, 21 hours each semester. We were on semesters long ago down there. And then I went to one summer for a class at Santa Monica Community College.
Right.
And when I got up there, they gave me credit for everything I had taken. I could not believe they gave me credit for I got 1 credit for being in a play. I got 1 credit for participating on a basketball program after school.
Wow.
I didn't play in any big things, but I was
Yeah.
in intramural. It was kind of like a PE.
Yeah.
But I ended up with enough credit that I was a 3rd quarter junior.
Wow.
And so it only took me 1 year at BYU to graduate.
Okay. They gave you a scholarship, like you said.
Yeah, it was a big one, $50.
That took care of everything, right?
And I got a $50 one from the Bank of America's. They gave to the quote outstanding business student, and I was
Okay.
in accounting
All right.
at the community college, and so that was pretty neat because they had a big banquet and they had us come in and gave us a nice big plaque, and
Right.
$50 check, so I got that. And
Now was there a class or course that was particularly challenging to you during your college, your undergraduate, or was
Yeah.
was everything pretty straightforward and not so
Yeah,
difficult?
I didn't have I had a B plus average. I didn't have outstanding grades. I got some A's, but not a lot. I didn't get any failing grades at all, but I got C's occasionally. I guess my toughest courses were math,
Okay.
and I had a class in chemistry. Yeah, it was chemistry. That was really hard for me.
Right.
But the other classes, the ones in accounting, were very simple bookkeeping.
Sure. Okay.
And so they were easy, add, subtract, multiply, all that kind of stuff, so they were not bad.
Right.
So I went to, then I left, after finishing up my work that summer, went up to BYU and got registered, and I found housing, and they had some old Army barracks, 2-story barracks they bought from the government.
At BYU.
BYU, and those were student housing. And it wasn't too heavy expense, but it was heavy enough that I was only able to stay a couple months in it. And I was up on the 2nd floor with some kids from Canada and a couple of kids from Utah. I was in a room with a kid from Utah. And then 2 guys from Canada were in the next one. But I couldn't afford it, so I had to move to an apartment in a basement. And I couldn't get a job. I just really couldn't get a job. I had searched everywhere. Even though I had some welding, you had to become a member of the union then. And I couldn't afford to join the union. And so...
Did you check the internet for jobs?
Oh, yeah. yeah. They had a little bulletin board. They posted different kinds of jobs that became available at the university. So after about 2.5 months of not being able to find a work, I went into the student advisement center and told them I was just going to have to quit because I couldn't get a job, and I was just having a terrible time getting food. And I had a car payment. It was only like $40 a month, but that was a lot then because you didn't get paid much.
Well, your scholarship check was $50, so that was like a car payment.
Yeah, the tuition for semester or for quarters, they were on quarters at BYU. Tuition was $75 for a quarter. And so I had enough from BYU and the thing from
Bank of America.
To pay for my first quarter.
Right.
But when I went in and told them I was going to have to leave, then they called over and they got me a job.
Oh.
And I worked as a custodian. And paid 45 cents an hour. And I could work up to 20 hours a week. And it gave me enough to start to getting food again and to pay for my car. And so
that's like $9 a week or something?
yeah, it was very, but that was big help.
Wow.
I weren't getting anything. And then I got a little part-time job at a service station in addition. And
Okay.
Then in January, the part-time job became good enough and strong enough that I could work 8 hours. And so I went to work at 3 and got off at 11 at the service station. I closed it up. It was a good old guy that ran that thing.
And you had done that before previously?
Yeah, I'd done it before, knew what I was doing, and changed tires. repairs and stuff like that, and to give lube oil filter, because I'd done it for a whole school year.
But you couldn't find that job initially.
No.
But it came along after you had
Yeah,
that.
it came after I got to looking, and I was able to work into it. After I got the job at BYU, I was able to work into it gradually.
Yeah. Now, how much was prayer a part of your life at that point? Like, did you pray, Heavenly Father, help me find a job, or was that not really how things were then? Or
I don't think I didn't. I came from a home. My mother and dad never prayed. We never had a Bible. We never discussed religion. All we had were work, work, work. And we ate well. And we had lots of fun around the table. And we had good company come from time to time that made it pleasant. But we didn't travel. We just pretty much stuck at home. And I didn't get acquainted with the church till I was started in scouting. Not early 12-year-old, but later when I was 12. And that was how I just got baptized, not even knowing. I never was taught anything. I didn't have missionaries, didn't have any discussion. And for a while, I thought I joined the Mormon Church of Basketball.
now, your parents weren't members, or
No.
no?
Well, my mother had been when she was a little girl,
Right.
but her father died, and her mother remarried a Catholic, and she was raised Catholic, but they never did go to church. And so she hadn't had much training at all in any kind of church. And so when she and Dad got married, Dad's family were Lutheran. They were German Lutherans that had moved into that little farming community. And they didn't go to church because there weren't a lot of Lutheran church in the community, in the area.
Yeah.
Church was never very important.
Right. But somehow you got connected with the
scouting, and I started going, and then when I was 14, they baptized me. And
so that was an LDS scouting group.
And I got to play basketball for the ward.
Mormon Church of Scouting, yes.
Yeah, and then when I was in high school, for 2 years I went to seminary, and they had the Old Testament and New Testament.
How did your parents feel about you being baptized?
They were all right about it.
They didn't care that much.
Yeah, my younger sister, who was at that time was about 10, went with me. And another kid whose parents were active, were members but not active, he was the same age as I, and he'd never been baptized, so they sent him up too. We went up the country. That was when I was young, 14. And then I didn't have much I didn't go to church a lot.
It was mainly just scouting during the one week night or something.
And I did get ordained deacon. I didn't do anything with deacon, no. And I finally, just before I left to go to California, I was ordained a priest. And I started going to Sunday meetings just a bit. But we milked cows, and the meetings were held often when we were in the evening always, because the church met early in the morning, late in the evening. And usually it met at 6 o'clock until 7:30 in the evening. And in the morning it wasn't until 9. And I was always milking cows. And in the evening I couldn't go. So I didn't get involved heavily in the church at all. When I went away to California, my sister and her husband were pretty active.
Wow.
So they started taking me, and I started going, and I discovered, having been raised in that little Mormon community, that the values and the attitudes and such were comfortable. And I became acquainted with 2 Mormon kids that were at the college, and that were there in the little community of Glendora. And we did a few things together, but I did start attending church pretty regularly while we were there. And by my 2nd year there, I was going pretty consistently. And it was the first time I had really learned what prayers were, when I was living with my sister.
Right. Was tithing part of the picture too, or not yet?
Yeah, it was.
Started
Became that.
Right. Yeah.
that was the first time I'd even understood what tithing was.
Sure.
And didn't know a lot of the basic principles. And so,
Smoking and drinking, all those things were
yeah, those
common.
they were pretty common in the fact that we didn't participate in that. And that was the part, I guess, that helped me become more affiliated with the church, was that so many of the kids in college were drinkers. And I didn't want to get involved with that. We didn't as a family at home. We didn't have a lot of alcohol.
Right.
Dad didn't. Dad tried to smoke once and made him sick. And so we never had anything like that around home. But
That's good.
wasn't because of being, part of the church.
Right, it's just, yeah.
So anyway, Dad joined about the time I was leaving to go to college, a little before, because he never did have missionary discussions, didn't understand, but he wanted to play on the ball team too. They had a softball team for men.
And you had to be a member.
He had to be a member.
Really? We don't do that today.
Yeah, he was
Maybe we
good.
should.
He was a very good ball player. He really was. It was in high school when he started playing ball. So
He was like 50 or something like that.
yeah,
Yeah.
he was late 40s,
Yeah.
early 50s. I was 15 when I think he was 35 when I was born, so, no, he was 34 when I was born.
Okay.
So 15 years later, he would have been
49.
49.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Were you there for his baptism?
No.
No.
I don't remember never being to anybody's baptism but mine.
And who baptized you? Just some.
A guy from Sydney, Von Egan, a kid from another ward that took us up to Ryrie to baptize us. But
Yeah.
anyway, got to BYU and first class in Book of Mormon.
Ah, yes.
I had a class in Book of Mormon with a fellow named Reed Broadhead, or Broadhead, Reed Broadhead. Very, very good. And then I had another class with a guy who was very, very famous. Sydney, oh gosh, he'd written a lot of books. Oh, in fact, they have a symposium for him every year at BYU.
Oh, Sidney Sperry.
Sidney Sperry.
Sidney B. Sperry, right.
Yeah, Sidney B. Sperry was a wonderful teacher, was a great teacher, funny teacher. And I began to get acquainted then for the first time, a little bit with the gospel. And
Were those classes required, I guess, like they are now?
yeah, they were
Okay.
required. You had to take the Book of Mormon.
Okay, so that was the same.
And so I did, and then I can't remember what other one. Sperry, I think, taught Pearl of Great Price,
Mm-hmm.
and that was what I took from him. But boy, he was a great teacher, and
So you started reading the scriptures around this time.
that
then, I
time
guess,
that
yeah.
was the first time I ever had,
Right.
and I still did not know a lot of the basic requirements and principles of the gospel.
Mm-hmm.
Tithing, I did, because I had, in order to go BYU, you had to be a tithe payer too, so that was true. And when I was
Was it hard for you to pay tithing, like initially?
well, it was initially, yes. I was making so little, and
Right.
starving, and having a terrible time keeping all the things together. Let me think through this now. When I was in high school, I participated in forensics and debate and speech things. I met a girl at a Southeastern Idaho conference for a speech festival who was from Blackfoot, Idaho. And I went down to a dance. I dated her 3 or 4 times and that was all, but one of the things we did was we went to a dance on Saturday night. The church in Blackfoot held a dance every Saturday night for teenagers to keep them off the road. And so Arthur Harmon, my good friend, and I went to Blackfoot to dance. And I took Charlene Hanson, he took who the girl was. I can't remember her name. But anyway, we went to the dance, and that's where I met my mom, Jerry.
Okay.
And we traded a dance one night there, and we got acquainted. And then when I was at BYU, I was walking across the campus one day, and I saw her and remembered her.
Ah, yes. So was she at the dance with another fellow?
Yeah, she was with somebody else that night, and
Right.
we never did get to know. But when I saw her, I recognized her, and I was working then as a custodian. It was in probably November.
You're smiling.
What I did was I swept the gymnasium floor between timeouts and halves and quarters in basketball.
Okay.
And I got a free pass to go to the game, so
Oh.
I got her to go with me to a game.
Ah.
And
So you had 2 free passes, or?
yeah, and I took her out 2 or 3 times was all, and I said to her, I'm going to ask you a very, very strange question, but and I hope you won't laugh at me, because it was, I think, on our 3rd date. But I said to her, I think I really want to marry you.
That's not a question, though.
So later on, we discussed a little more, and then I got her an engagement ring.
So what was her initial response? Do you remember?
Yeah, well, I can't remember. We'll have to ask her. She was really shocked about it. She didn't know whether that was a very good idea.
Well, that was like the 3rd day, you said.
Yeah, it was pretty early.
Yeah. She's,
But anyway, we ended up getting married, and I graduated from BYU, got through in the going fall, winter, spring, and summer. So that I was, let's see, 20 when I graduated, and we went to California.
did she go to school too?
She was going to college, and she finished up her freshman year. And then we were married in June and headed out to California. And we had a tough first year in California.
Yeah.
I got paid, my first contract was $3,600 a year.
Oh, teaching. Yeah.
Teaching. And I worked part-time again in various places.
What made you go into teaching?
After I got to BYU and was in accounting my first quarter, it just drove me crazy. And so...
The accounting at college was different than the accounting in high school.
hey, it was a cost process, it was auditing, it was... I'd never heard of this stuff before, and I was spending every minute I had trying to just pass the classes. And
Right.
I was so glad to get out of those classes with B's that I just quit accounting. And I had worked part-time when I was in California as a playground supervisor, and I really liked working with, was held on an elementary school playground.
Okay.
And I really liked working with the little kids, and we'd get, put games together.
In the
play.
school environment. And,
Yeah, and it was my very first year when I got down there. I was just working anywhere I could find work, and I got that job working at Arrowhead School. No, Arrowhead. No. What was the name of that? It was a heavily Mexican school.
And $3,600 a year.
But when I started at BYU, or when I started teaching in California, it was $3,600 a year, and I ended up with about 220 take home. It was $300 a month, and I had about 220 take home, and our rent was $60-some, and
So they took taxes out of your paycheck back then?
oh yeah,
You know,
yeah, I bet.
Yeah, Social Security and stuff, or, you know.
Social Security and income tax and
State income tax.
yeah, the state. I don't know what there was a state, but and when Scott was born.
Probably no health insurance though, right? Or did
No health insurance. When Scott was born in Bakersfield, they'd had a big earthquake in Bakersfield before we got there 2 years, and it shook down all the hospitals and everything like that. And so Mother went to a county hospital, and she had a new and unusual experience in that she was in a four bedrooms, 4 people in the room. Because there wasn't a lot of hospital available, and they were black people.
Okay.
At least 1 or 2 of them were, and it was all new experience for her.
I bet.
but it cost us $90
For Scott.
for Scott.
Was he worth it?
Oh, when you look at what they cost now, and you know the thing that was very interesting. We never had any insurance when we moved up to Utah. We went from Bakersfield. I taught there 1 year, and it was a super good experience for me teaching. It's just that we were struggling all the time to find pennies to buy a loaf of bread. You know?
Right.
And
Okay, let's go ahead and stop here. We'll pick up next
okay,
time
that'll be good.
at that point.